Thanks for joining Digital Forum. Today, we have Dr. Scott Snyder with us. Dr. Snyder is a seasoned technology and innovation leader with over 30 years of experience, spanning Fortune 500 executive roles at GE and Lockheed Martin, venture capital at Safeguard Scientifics, co-founding Mobiquity, and most recently serving as Chief Digital Officer at Eversana, complemented by his work as an author of multiple books, including Your AI Life and Goliath's Revenge. He is a senior fellow at Wharton, holds 3 patents for personalization engines, serves on the board of Fulton Financial Corporation, and has been a World Economic Forum Digital Economy Fellow, bringing a rare blend of academic rigor, entrepreneurial experience, and enterprise transformation expertise to the conversation. Welcome, Scott.
Great to see you, Mike and Peter.
Scott, it's great to see you again. We have the serendipitous good luck to be speaking with you the day after the pixels are barely dry on a Substack post, where you do a little bit of a callback to your work in 2019 that was published under the title of Goliath's Revenge, and look at 6 rules that at that time you were talking about as being keys to digital transformation. And you reframe the difficulties that are widely being reported with AI adoption through that same set of lenses. And I was struck by 2 numbers in particular. You talked about the 70% failure rate of digital transformation that McKinsey was talking about in 2019, and then further that with the 95% zero returns on AI recently reported in July of last year by MIT. Are the differences between those numbers just all the mistakes they were making with digital transformation and more so, or are there new and genuinely different mistakes being made that are resulting in these, shall I say, failure to achieve the immediate returns that people thought they'd be getting as of 2 years ago?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Peter. It is often fun to go back and dust off the old frameworks or hypotheses and see if they still stick. And it turns out, I think when you peel back the root of any of these transformations, whether it's digital or now AI, at the heart of them are humans and leaders. And those things don't change, right? Now, I would say the difference is AI probably has 2 things that maybe separate it a little bit from digital in terms of both speed. The clock speed is just much faster in terms of the rate of change and the capability and the pervasiveness in the enterprise. So while digital, certainly digitizing an enterprise was an objective, it still focused a lot on products and experiences. Whereas I think now there's not a part of an enterprise that AI doesn't touch. So it creates even more of a challenge. But, the 6 rules we thought of in Goliath's Revenge really still apply. I mean, this idea that being able to really say, what is our future back vision in an AI first world? That's probably the most daunting things for leaders right now. So many of them are falling back into the comfort zone of thinking today forward and seeing where they can just gain efficiencies and cost savings. And that'll get you so far, but it'll probably you'll end up at a destination that might be mediocre at best, and let alone not keep up with disruption. And then that obviously has to translate in a portfolio of those bold moves that are going to reinvent yourself with the things that you can practically get done, because you do need to build momentum and make your current business more efficient. And then number 3, I think, is relevant as ever, data as currency. Really looking at your data and content as one of your unique weapons or advantages as a company. I think that applies even more in an AI world today. It's one of the few moats companies can create when lots of other products and AI solutions will commoditize. Number 4 was accelerate through innovation networks. If you think about it now, the speed of AI almost necessitates an ecosystem approach, whether it's your tech partners, whether it's startups. Trying to do it all yourself is probably going to be fraught with danger, and you're not going to move fast enough. Number 5, talent over technology, as important as ever, because you're still going to have to transform your workforce, and that's going to include evolved roles, the roles that you already have, like a financial analyst, an HR associate, a supply chain engineer. They're just going to be doing different things in an AI first world than they are today. So giving them visibility into that. And then there's going to be brand new roles that appear, like an AI ethicist or an orchestration engineer or an AI interaction designer, that you're going to have to either hire in or groom some of your people to take on those brand new roles. Reshaping that workforce is going to be critical, so your company's ready. And that's not just the skill side, it's the mindset side and making sure that they can get there.
Scott, I want to pick up on one key phrase I heard you just use. You're still going to have a CXO, CFO, chief supply officer, whatever, but they're going to be doing different things. I think that's something that's really got to be elevated. I think it was Stephen Wolf actually at Forum a year or two ago when he said the easiest thing is to take things that you currently do at disappointingly low quality or high cost and say, maybe AI can do these things better. That's the easy stuff to do. And so you have your CFO still doing what the CFO always did, but now with AI, except that he was saying, what about the things you aren't doing at all because the data was too poorly structured or the process volatile? What about, shedding your flashlight around the dark corners of the basement and saying, doing this somewhat instead of not at all would be a higher return than doing these other things that we currently do okay, but could do better. But it's a much more difficult conversation to go find things you're not doing at all than it is to add AI to the things you do now discussion. And that really is your rule one, isn't it? Step change outcomes, not incremental improvements, but saying, hey, here's something we don't do. Our competition doesn't do. Our customers have never seen. We could do that. And that's got to be, as I think you indicated, at least as much a leadership challenge as a technology challenge.
Yeah, I think it happens at the corporate level, Peter, that to your point, there may be things we could now open up because we can make our operations that's much more efficient. Maybe we can go after long tail customer segments we never even touched before because the economics didn't make sense. Or maybe we can think of new product features that would be really attractive to launch, but we just had too much of a backlog to get through before because our software development was too slow. So there's that piece. And then at a role level, allowing each individual to have some agency and redesigning their own role and saying, what are the things at the end of the week you're like, man, I wish I got to these big things on my list, but I've been sucked into the tyranny of the urgency. And if you could offload some of your job and take on those things, what would they be? And I think we got to embrace the fact that our employees would probably relish that opportunity to rewrite their role in an AI first future, but we're not asking them to do that yet.
Well, I think there's definitely a TikTok push-pull thing here, and that goes straight into your rule two about little I and big I. If you want to get engagement and credibility for an AI initiative, a couple of quick wins to make people say, okay, maybe this isn't just hype, could be good, but you have to have a plan that once that bandwagon is built, people jump on it and start going after the step change outcomes. And that's very much, again, a leadership challenge.
And they're connected. And I think too often that, you lived through the digital world where people experimented in setting up these digital labs in the West Coast or whatever, separate from their mothership. And most of them failed because they were separate things. But the reality is these big I or big AI innovations, the reason you're able to do those is because you're also continuously innovating on your current business model. And you've created this culture and backplane of innovation. And I think giving people the permission to innovate across the business then frees up capital resources to go after the big stuff. And I think people miss that a little bit in some ways because we're working on the same assets. And I also am a big fan of this notion of self-funding innovation. There's a lot of leaders in the business that'll say, I don't have budget or time to do this. Well, if you could get your team cranked up and producing impact and outcomes with AI that free up time, resources, money, why shouldn't you reinvest that in the next innovation in your group versus waiting for permission or budget to go act? So,
well, you're reminding me of the wrenching transformation that went on inside the head of Tom Peters when he went from writing In Search of Excellence and said, stick to your knitting, to 2 years later writing Thriving on Chaos and saying, essentially, we need to apologize for In Search of Excellence. It turns out that the companies that do not stick to their knitting, but that embark on bold, adaptive change to new capability are the ones that really thrive. And I think that's what I hear you saying again with AI is that adopting AI will expose your inability to do that in a way that other technologies, took a lot longer to do. Michael, I think I talked over you.
Oh, that's okay. Well, what I'm interested in right now is taking a look at what leaders are doing right, what practitioners are doing right, what they're not doing right at the moment. So based on your experience, based on what you're seeing right now, what's going well, what's kind of an impediment to the shift in the transformation?
Yeah, I think it goes on all prongs of, this kind of notion of, being an AI first enterprise. I mean, one is having the portfolio Peter just talked about that's balanced, future back, has those bold moves that reinvent ourselves and allow us to change the game with AI, but also is balanced with those things that are practical. We can get quick wins and momentum in the business and start to put points on the board. And there has to be that balance, because otherwise you're not efficient today and you fall behind, or you're irrelevant tomorrow in the future. So I think that balanced portfolio is really a leadership model, and that has to be supported across the business, because those big bold moves drive tension in the people running the mature businesses. I think,
well, it's almost a trope to talk about the acceleration, but I think within the careers of all three of us, we've literally seen a shrinkage of the cycle from 5 to 6 years to 5 to 6 quarters to now arguably 5 to 6 months of substantial change. And Scott, toward the end of your Substack post, you said you need to make it clear to people that do nothing is not an option. That the acceleration this time is so much faster than what we used to call rapid change with things like Moore's Law rates of improvement. This is so much faster.
Yeah, I talk to a lot of boards, and boards tend to understand risk more than opportunity. So I reframe this as, what's the risk if you do nothing? How much will your core business erode? How many customers could you lose if you don't move and your competitors do? And I think sometimes that's the wake up call, right? That this is as much defensive as offensive if we don't make those bold moves and don't get ahead of disruption. But I think the other pieces really revolve around talent. I like the BCG slide that says, this is 30% tech and algorithms, and it's 70% about the people. And I think, unfortunately, the focus is swapped in most companies. And, thinking about how are we going to change people's mindsets and behaviors. I know you guys talked to Daniel about some of this, so they can move up that AI adoption curve in the right way. And it's not just training them, it's actually allowing them to experiment and eventually getting them to the point where they're accountable and take ownership of those solutions. Because without ownership, we're not going to push out mission critical AI solutions.
Is there a serious burn heading for companies 5 years from now, and they discover they don't have the people with 5 years experience that used to be ready for promotions into management because they stopped hiring, new hires because AI could, quote, do that grunt work, unquote?
It's a huge issue. I keep hearing from people, especially in service firms, that apprenticeship is dead, which I sure hope not. I think it's got to get reinvented. But I actually think the organizations of the future are going to both embrace and show love to their SMEs, the people that are ready to retire now, but are so critical to training these AI models and also being the human in the loop, quote, that's going to judge the AI output and say, is this compliance decision right or not? Is this piece of content consistent with our brand or not? The young athlete employees are super adaptable, but they don't have that experience lens. So it's going to be a combination of those SMEs who right now need to be incented more, because they're also going to have to train those younger employees that are adaptable to come up that critical thinking and experience curve faster. So I think you've got this 2-layer problem. And right now, I think most human resource departments are not driving this, and they're not building the right incentive models for either one of those groups right now.
So in terms of that, young entrants to the market at this point, there seems to be a barrier to entry for people coming out of university, going into corporations. Is that a function of AI obviating those entry-level positions, or is it a function of new entrants don't have the skill set necessary that's needed for the transformation, or is it something else? What's happening there?
I think it's an overreaction by companies, and I think they're going to wake up and realize, like, we can't cut off our young, energetic talent base, right? That are going to fuel our future. And they're going to realize that, they overcorrected and said that was the easy thing to do, turn off the new hiring faucet, instead of being thoughtful about back to designing this future AI-powered workforce. What's the shape and size of it? What kind of roles do we need to evolve? What ones do we need to create? And then be thoughtful about where can we put new entrants in on these fast tracks, because they are going to adapt and grow faster. I don't care what company. I've seen this happen again and again, but then where do we need experts? Where do we need specialized teams to deliver on these outputs? I think the other piece of this is outsourcing is under attack. I wouldn't want to be an Indian outsourcer right now, because the body-based businesses of the past where I offshored a lot of my work, I think a lot of that's going to come back closer to companies where I can control it. And I think that's another opportunity for young people to be part of those new hybrid AI human teams to go build those new products or new workflows.
Yeah, I want to go back to a point you made earlier. And I think you said tyranny of the moment that boards tend to look at. So there's the opportunity for boards to move and transform. Is there also some caution that you can throw from boards just jumping into something and AI washing their way into this new future transformation I think we all need to make?
Yeah, well, I think there's two parts to that question. Can boards use AI to be more effective at what they do? And Valerie Yukubovich at Wharton did a really interesting experiment and created a fully AI board and ran a simulation against a human board at INSEAD. And check out the paper in HBR, but basically the AI board outperformed in terms of preparation, quality of questions, discussion, decision process. So yes, can boards benefit from AI? Absolutely. And they should be using it more, because that's going to then help bring their own acumen and awareness up. But I think in terms of their role in overseeing companies, I think there's both sides of it. I think it's make sure we have this balanced portfolio of bold moves to protect ourselves and stay relevant in the future. But the risk piece, especially with agentic AI, we're still in the Wild West, right, of controls and governance there. And if you're a board, you've got to be vigilant, and you've got to really be thinking about, okay, where can we deploy this in a way we can innovate at speed, but also protect the company, right, and our customers. And so I think there are things, just like cybersecurity was a decade ago, boards need to be more aware of it for sure.
And in terms of the spaces which are kind of open and we're unaware of, are unknown unknowns as it relates to governance, what do you think are some missing links right now that need to be shored up in the near term around governance specifically?
Oh boy, I think agentic AI is super exciting. I think it will move the needle far more than just, standalone LLMs, but I think there's so much ground to be plowed in best practices on controls and governance. I've already heard stories. You've heard the stories, Mike, about, agents blowing away critical data in emerging growth companies. I've heard stories recently where, unbeknownst to anybody else, an agent swarm actually took down a production system because multiple people had built agents hitting the same production system at the same time. And there was no orchestration across processes. So there's things we're learning that could actually, create risk for the enterprise that are brand new. So I think there's that piece. I think the other piece is just making sure you have the right representation on your governance model. I mean, there's still companies that should have a responsible AI policy. They don't. They don't necessarily have the right cross-functional, legal, technical, business representation on their AI councils. And the AI councils shouldn't be built to squash innovation. They should allow innovation to foster, especially that little AI stuff. But for things that are high risk, high impact, they need the right review, the right rigor. And then the last piece of governance is governance doesn't stop when the pilot's done. In fact, now the product has a life cycle. It needs monitoring. Models drift. They need to be observed. They need to be checked, validated, red teamed on an ongoing basis. And I don't see companies setting up that infrastructure like they should be.
Scott, we're not only talking to you the day after your blog post, but we're talking to you on the morning of the Challenger Grand Christmas data showing the fewest new hires and the most layoffs in the U.S. economy since 2009 for a January. What's happening in the labor force now when you've got the unemployment rate among recent college graduates for the first time ever recorded higher than the general unemployment rate, when all the rules that people used to think they would follow as individuals, as team leaders, as enterprises are up for grabs? The red flags are doing nothing. What are the yellow flags of thinking you're doing it right, but actually not doing the things that will build the foundation for being, as we said for Forum this year, the successful enterprise in an AI epoch.
Yeah, I think it's a couple things, Peter. One, it's back to this notion, like, unfortunately, too many companies are over-indexing on AI as a cost cutter. I think Scott Galloway called it the Ozempic
as they
for
did with
enterprises.
digital, as they did with cloud. The first thing that you say, oh, we can do what we do now for less money, and that's usually not a good strategy.
Right, exactly. So I think there's that piece, but I'm glad to see there are a few outliers, like Lilly, like AIG just came out in their quarterly financial report and basically said, listen, we invested big money to rewire our underwriting process with agentic AI. It's going to produce 2 to 5x throughput gain. So we're going to be able to underwrite that much faster. That means we can reach more customers than our competitors, and we're going to get a 20% revenue lift in 3 years. That's bold. And that also says we're going to do more with the same team we have today. That's an inspiring message if you're the workforce, right? Versus the one that, hey, you come up with a good idea, you may actually put yourself out of a job. I think the other piece of it is back to what we talked about. I don't think we've spent the time and thought to redesign our workforce of the future yet. So we don't even know what those evolved roles look like, let alone the new AI roles. And that's making it hard because we're just saying, do we need another financial analyst that only does X? Well, maybe we need, new financial analysts that can do AI-based cash flow prediction, or they can do dynamic business modeling, right? And if we can start putting those signals down to the kids coming out of college, they're going to learn those skills, right? They're going to evolve to where the market opportunity is, but they're getting mixed messages now. So,
well, one thing I'd like to leave our listeners and viewers with is what you're excited about regarding Forum 26 that's coming up on March 5th. At the Comcast Technology Center. What are you looking forward to, and what are some parting words that you would have for the audience today?
I think, and you guys have been involved with Forum as long as me, one of the things that the power of Forum is the diversity of the audience, right? The startups, the investors, the large enterprises that want to innovate, and thought leaders, I think really coming together and AI, as I mentioned, is so pervasive. There can't be enough perspectives you listen to because, as we all know, and we live in this space a lot, there are no experts. Every day the rules get reinvented, the information changes. So I think being willing to triangulate every day, and Forum gives you a great chance to triangulate on, where you think things are going, what other people are doing, what's working, what's not, and gives you some compass, a little bit as a leader to start making some of those decisions. And the second piece is, I think we're all consumers and we're all technology enthusiasts that come to Forum. And to me, that's great. That's why I write Your AI Life, because there's half the population right now that's not inspired by AI, that's not seeing themselves in that AI first future. I think the people coming to Forum can help change that. So
amazing. Well, you heard it here. Dr. Scott Snyder is going to be at Forum on March 5th. That's Thursday, March 5th of 2026. We hope to see you all there. Scott, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, guys. Excited to see you both there.
All right. We'll see you soon.